Hey, Devils fans, welcome back for another Shorty here on our YouTube page. Jersey Devils Brocast. Devils are back in action after the historic Olympic break that we're all very, very happy about. But the Devils are back. I don't know, is that a good thing? Sometimes it is, sometimes not so much. It's been a bit of a mixed bag as the Devils lost their first two games, but we just won the third one. You guys last heard from me after their initial game back after Buffalo. So let's get into what has happened since then. We're going to kind of ignore the Penguins game, though, because that was a brutal third period. No Crosby. Pittsburgh is solidifying a playoff spot right now. They are kind of where we all thought the Devils were going to be. But yeah, that hasn't been the case. Devils are very, very far out of the playoff picture. Pittsburgh is currently sitting in second in the Metro Division, and it certainly looks like it. So it's sort of a typical loss where the Devils are sort of hanging around, kind of a good play or two away from taking over the game or getting back into the game or getting some momentum in the game. And instead, they lacked the extra effort in that third period, and they just kind of collapsed. And that's kind of what has been normal for this team as we've seen since mid-November. It's almost expected at this point, but there was another game. Devils in St. Louis. They won 3-1. Goals by Meyer, 5:37 in the second period, assisted by Brett Pesce and Luke Hughes. Luke back in the lineup. Then they got a goal from Dougie Hamilton in the second period at the very end as well, and a power play assisted by Jack and Jacob Markstrom. And then a bizarre goal that I kind of thought might stem the tide of, not stem the tide, I guess be kind of a momentum killer for the Devils and just sort of be a here we go again. That is how this season has gone. Markstrom trying to clear the puck out and clears it right into some St. Louis Blues players and ends up in our net. One of the weirdest plays of the year. Though Markstrom did a few things like that earlier in the year, but they bounced back. They held it together. 5 seconds ago, Nico got the empty netter, assisted by Jesper Bratt and Connor Brown, which I'm going to say this on a note here on Connor Brown. I think he's been a good pickup. You know, picked him up in the offseason, guy to give you some depth scoring. I think Connor Brown has been pretty much everything the Devils could have asked for. I know he was hurt for a little bit. He missed a few games, but right now he's got 10 goals, 13 assists, 23 points in 53 games. That's pretty much Connor Brown, right? That's what he's done most of his career. Last year he had 30 points in 82 games. So he's actually having a better season this year than he did last year. So Connor Brown has been everything we could have kind of hoped for, to be honest with you. So Bratt also getting an assist. So good to see him get a point up there on the board because he's been struggling. Markstrom, 25 saves on 26 shots. I thought it was a good game by Markstrom. I know he had that weird goal. Against Pittsburgh, not a great third period all around, but I don't really blame Markstrom for that. I think during the Olympics and now after the Olympics, he's looked like the Jacob Markstrom from last year. His whole career, he's kind of been a little up and down, where he's very streaky, where he has these uh, just runs where he doesn't look very good at all. As Chico said back in when Jacob was struggling, that you can really see him just really going way out of position, almost trying too hard and not really just kind of staying within himself and playing with confidence. And when he lacks confidence, he starts trying to do too much, starts getting out of position, overplaying certain angles, and then, things don't end up too well. But he's starting to look like the Jacob Markstrom that we all know and love. The guy that played well in the playoffs last year, down the stretch last year, guy that just played fairly well for Sweden. So good to see him back. So another thing in that St. Louis game that I thought was an interesting observation, maybe for Devils fans, and maybe I'm one of a few that's thinking this because of where they stand. But Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou have been two players that have been loosely linked to the Devils, two players that maybe some of the pundits like Friedman, etc., have said would be good fits long term for the Devils. So watching those two guys, certainly I'd take either one. Robert Thomas is a center, a little bit more of an overall player, good playmaker. I don't know if that is what the need is for the Devils, where Kyrou is a winger who's a finisher, who's had over 30 goals several times in his career. A guy like that, man, come the offseason, if they could pick up a guy like Jordan Kyrou and put him in this top six, have a finisher like that with Jack, Maybe that's what they've been missing. I know I've been watching a lot of post-game analysis on YouTube from Novozinski and his channel and James Nichols and his channel, and kind of been saying the same thing. And then you go on Facebook pages and Instagram, and I see it all from you guys too. We really need that finisher and that guy with that ability to just go out there and put up some goals and go on a streak and score 5 goals in 6 games. Like Meyer's about to start that because it's March. But like we need a guy to do that a little bit more consistently throughout the season. And a guy like Jordan Kyrou would be a great, I think he'd be a pretty good fit. The age is there too, still in his late 20s. Certainly not an older player. You can argue he has several really good prime years in front of him. So that's a guy, two guys to keep an eye on. And watching that game, I was almost like trying to scout it in a way of like, which one of these guys would I want? Like, I'll take either one. But I think Kyrou is more the need. Thomas might be the better player overall, but Kyrou fits that need of they need a guy that's a 30, 35 goal scorer that can play with a playmaker like Hughes or like Bratt or Nico and go and finish some of those plays that those guys don't really have a lot of help with right now. But moving on, some other NHL news over the weekend. New York Islanders beat the Florida Panthers 5-4, which is sort of like talking about the Flyers game the other day. Like, pick your poison, who do you want to win? Because they're both standing between us and a playoff spot right now in one way or another. But the Islanders just beat the Panthers tonight. Devils are very far behind the Islanders for third in the Metro. I don't think, even if a miraculous comeback happens, the Devils will get third in the Metro. They'd have to win out, period. All 22 games at this point. But then the Flyers beat Boston, which sort of helps the Devils. They're now only 11 points back out of a playoff spot. That's nothing, right? 11 points back from Boston. Playoff picture is still rather bleak. 11 points out with 22 to go. So I'm going to say they need 38 points out of 44 possible points to make the playoffs, which is fairly unlikely. That would be a ridiculous run. Well, let's just be honest, right? I've tried to be positive as long as I can. I'm starting to get towards the negative, just being a realist. That's probably not going to happen. And we're going to talk in a few minutes about what I kind of hope happens from here on out. But the Kings fired their head coach, Jim Hiller, and replaced him with interim head coach, DJ Smith. LA is only 3 points out of a playoff spot here, but they haven't played their best hockey as of late, even before the break. Watching the NHL Network, some clips with Elliot Friedman, and some quotes from Ken Holland and the LA Kings staff. Seems like the Kings are kind of hoping the Olympic break would help them turn the page. They'd come back fresh, start off with a little bit of a better start, and they just haven't. So a change was made. And relating that to the Devils, I think the Devils had some windows of opportunity to make a change like that earlier in the season that they declined to do. And when we do the post-mortem of this season later on, I think one of the questions is going to be if they had changed coaches after the 9-0 loss and then the follow-up loss after that, when, they just things weren't looking great there in January period, would that, while they were still very much in the race, by the way, would that have changed things enough where the conversation today and a lead up to the trade deadline would have been much different than it is? But trade deadline is Friday. I don't know about you guys. Devils are linked in some rumors. But again, I don't know about you guys, and I'm not really anticipating the Devils to have an incredibly active day. It's just a gut feeling. I don't know if Fitzgerald. I don't know for a few reasons why he would tear it apart right now. I think, A, if he is going to stick around or he's had some sort of reassurance from the ownership that he's not going anywhere, I would think he'd still want to keep this. Fitzgerald is going to keep this kind of together for the most part. You might see 2 or 3 guys go. Guy like Hamilton to clear out some cap space to make some bigger moves in the offseason and try and maybe get some other tools and some picks and prospects to make some trades, some more tools in the toolbox to make that happen. But I just don't know if we're seeing anything else. I've been reading some articles of some other Devils beat writers talking about Brendan Dillon, Cody Glass, Dadonov. I certainly could see the scenarios where that could happen, and it would make a lot of sense. But I just don't know if Fitzgerald will. I'm not sold on that we're going to do a big fire sale on Friday, and you're going to see Hamilton, Glass, Dadonov, Glendening, Dillon, Kovacevic, all these guys go. I don't know. I think you might see. I think you're going to see Hamilton go. Maybe you see a veteran like Dylan. Maybe, but I'm not sure. I think they want him around for next year. I think Dadonov is probably gone. Maybe Glass, but I think they're going to want Glass around for next year. He's been a great third line center. If you want to compete next year, you're going to want a guy like Cody Glass on your team. You're going to probably be looking to replace him in the offseason if you move him now. So you don't have to replace him if you just keep him. So I don't know if they're going to do that, but we will see. My prediction is it's going to be Dougie Hamilton and like Dadonov and Glendening and everything else is going to be kind of status quo. But now after that, some of these Devils guys like Ryan Novozinski, specifically Novo, as he's called by a lot of people that follow him. And I love watching his videos, and he has some of the questions that you can see annoy the players and the management. But I think for the most part, they're questions that need to be asked, and he's fearless in asking them. So I respect that, and I think it's pretty cool. But he's big on Devils should be tanking right now. And I totally get it. To get Gavin McKenna, to have that opportunity to bring a player like that into this organization, to have another high-end offensive player that in the long run could be running with Jack and Nico and who they already have is very exciting to think about. And even this kid from Sweden, I think his name is Stenberg. Let me get that up for real here because I don't want to be wrong with you guys here on our videos. But regardless, I'll pick up his name in a second. But I think the Devils, you should be looking more for. Sorry, folks. Again, trying to do this really quick here. But I think the Devils should be trying to look more for building on something this year. Ivor Stenberg. See, I got it. Russian kid who's actually looking like he might surpass Gavin McKenna. This is looking a little like the Nico Hischier, Nolan Patrick draft where Nico came on late and took over that top spot and kind of, it almost became a lot of people were expecting him to go first overall. And that was a great pick for the Devils. We've seen that in the past a little bit with Shane Wright a few years ago with Slavkovsky and Nemec going before him and Logan Cooley. So you never know, but Stenberg is a hell of a prospect as well. Gavin McKenna has been talked about for a very long time, and there are some questions about him that aren't necessarily skill talent related, some off the ice stuff that, I don't know if we fully know the truth on a lot of those things, but it's exciting to get those guys here. Absolutely. I'd love to see the Devils win the draft lottery and get the first or second overall pick and pick up one of those two guys, and now you have another high-end, elite-level core player on this team for the long run. I get that. But I think this roster is already pretty good. I don't think they've been managed correctly. I think their style isn't what I would imagine they would be playing when you look at this roster. It doesn't necessarily fit. But I would much rather see this group that's still rather young build on something here. Like in the next 3 years, are the Devils better off with Gavin McKenna and losing out this season or getting Nico, Jack, Bratt, Luke, and Nemec going here and building confidence and building off of something and playing well through the end of the season and taking it into the offseason and the next year and something they could build upon for a great year next year? And I'd reference that 2011 season where McLean was fired, Lemaire came in, Devils went on a run, won the lottery, and got Adam Larson leave fourth overall that year. They were able to move up in the draft. But they then went on in 2012 and had a great season pretty much from start to finish and made it to the finals. And it was something they built on because a lot of those guys that played huge roles for them next year, like Zubris and especially Kovalchuk, carried that into the next season where they were struggling to start. And then they had a great run to finish. And that carried into the next year. And Kovalchuk had an 83-point season, was one of the best overall players on that team, period, and was a huge part of that engine that got them to the finals. I look at these guys in that way. I want to see Nico and Brat and Luke Hughes and Nemec, especially the guys that we're still waiting to see him really get on a streak and get hot and get going. I want to see that happen. I want to see Luke Hughes and Nemec get pairing minutes and excel and build on that and get some confidence and something that we can look forward to then next year, not just as a fan base, but for the team. These guys to feel good about where they're at going in the next year. To go and 22 games left and they lose 15 of them. Yeah, it's great. They're going to get the top pick. But now we're going to go in the offseason, and maybe you're going to ask some guys to waive a no trade or a no movement clause. Going to ask other free agents to want to come here. And now, why would they when you just played like total garbage for the majority of the season and showed no life after November? Why would they want to come here? Because you got Gavin McKenna? And that might be great in 4 years. They want to win. These guys, especially older players, they want to win next year. They don't have 4 or 5 years. They might not have that. They want to come and win next year. You want to bring an impactful veteran into this team to try and get some more out of these guys, ask them to waive a no trade, no movement, or just sign a contract. Would you? If this team is still in rebuild or retooling and building a little bit more through the draft and we're looking ahead to the future, does Nico Heischer want to stick around for this? Now, I would imagine Nico's sticking around, and the Devils will make every effort to keep him, but he's only got one more year left on his contract. Like, if this team just plays awful through the end of this season and they become another lottery team again, like, does Nico Heischer want to kind of be the way Taylor Hall was for a while? It's like the guy just ends up on every team that wins the draft lottery for pretty much the first 10 years of his career. Like, do you want to do that, or do you want, if you have an opportunity to go to another team that's just in a much better position where you can win a cup in the next 2, 3 years, are you going to do that? And I think the Devils have a lot of talent. This pretty much the same group that once scored a ton of goals and had one of the best regular seasons in franchise history not that long ago. I think it's still there. They need some significant changes in the offseason, but I think the long term and the future is better if they start playing better now. I know I'm probably in the minority opinion. I think every day more and more people want this team to tank, and you know what? I completely get it. And there's still a part of me that kind of maybe, but for the most part, I'd much rather see this team play well. And let's go on a run here. We got 22 games to go. Can we win 15 out of 22 and at least put together not it's not a respectable season at this point unless they miraculously make the playoffs, right? Anything short of that's not respectable. It's still a catastrophic year, no matter what. But could we at least end on something better? I always make my golf analogies. Well, if you blew your round in the first 9 holes, the front nine, you go out there and just totally crap your pants. But the back nine, you finish better, you find something that's working. Well, now you got something to take into your next round. If it's just a crap festival for 18 holes, you didn't accomplish or get anything out of it. You didn't learn anything. You didn't find something that's working. Like, at least try and find something that can work here and let's get this going. And that's how I look at this season. Yeah, the first 4 holes were great for the Devils, and then holes 5 through 15 have been garbage. But here in the end, maybe we can figure something out with a few holes to go in the season and do something with this and learn something from this. Maybe some guys start getting some chemistry and feeling better and playing better. And again, some confidence. Because I think that's something this team's lacking too. It's confidence. When you just see this kind of lack of scoring, I think the system is certainly an issue, but I think to be this bad, where you're the worst in hockey, goals for per game, like you're worse than the Canucks, you're worse than the Rangers, the worst in the game. That's more than just a systems issue where this team is slightly below average and like these guys are scoring, but like it just seems like it's just not like a fit. They need to make some changes. Like to me, it's that and confidence. These guys just aren't feeling great about their game. I think we've seen that a lot in post games where you could certainly put that together. Let's get some confidence back, guys. You know, again, 2011, 2012. Went on a run second half, missed the playoffs, but had a lot to build upon. Made it to the finals next year. This is a great core group still with Nico and Jack and Brat, and to an extent Meyer, who I'm sure everyone's going to love by the end of March because Meyer March is coming. The talent with Luke and Nemec, like I don't think it's like the future is dismal here, but we got to turn something around and get something going. And I also think as an organization, one of the faces of hockey right now, who has had a crazy week, Jack Hughes, has traveled everywhere, right? Made it to SNL Saturday night after a game. I think it's better for the team and the franchise and the organization, period, that the Devils are actually on the map right now. And like maybe they should play well while they are on the map and not start losing every game in a row. And maybe people start losing interest. Like maybe it's better for the franchise that while people are paying attention to Jack Hughes right now, Hughes is feeling it and playing well, and the team starts playing better. And maybe there's some energy and momentum here going into next season, both on the ice and off the ice. So I think it's better if this team plays well and finishes a year strong. That's how I feel. No, I totally get what those other guys have been saying, and you know what, I can't say I disagree either. I actually agree. Yeah, it would be great if you go get Stenberg or McKenna, get a top two pick, have I don't know if either one is considered a franchise generational talent, but like probably they're up there in the talent level of where Jack was when he was drafted. That would be amazing. But feel like this team is very talented right now. I'd much rather just roll the dice with a draft lottery and let's play really well to end the season and trying and get something out of this to build towards next year. So, in saying that, I think that's it for today. You can catch us Tuesday nights. We will be going live Tuesday night, 9 to 10 o'clock on Radio Garden State. As always, you can listen on the Audacy app, Tunein app, radio.net, RadioGardenState.com. Multiple places to listen. Also, Radio Garden State has a Patreon going on, too. So, guys, definitely check that out. Get episodes from us and all the other shows on the radio channel. So, as always, I'm Jay Bake here on our YouTube page. Check us out here on Instagram, on Facebook. Let me know what you guys think. All right, let's go, Devils. We got a big week coming up. The Panthers. We got the Rangers at the end of the week. We're going to talk a lot more about that on Tuesday, but Devils and Panthers coming up Tuesday night. At the end of the game, third period, tune in to us. We're going to have a good time, listen to the game, do a little post game. All right? Let's go, Devils.